Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2023 film The Sacrifice Game. It's a Shudder original and it's coming to Shudder on Friday, December 8th. So this is a no spoiler review because it's a new film and because when I'm putting this out, it hasn't even hit Shudder yet. So I'm going to preface this one by saying every film is worth watching at least once, just at least to figure out how you personally feel about it. Now, people who have been watching my channel long enough know that that means I did not enjoy this film, which is uncomfortable for me, especially because I am familiar with someone who wrote it, who is a wonderful person. I've had wonderful experiences with them, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the other thing is, when I go into films, especially smaller budget films like this one clearly is, I want to like them. I want smaller filmmakers, independent filmmakers to succeed. And I always hope that they do. There are positives with this film, but overall, I really didn't like it. And obviously, you'll hear why. But, like I said, every film is worth watching at least once, just to figure out how you personally feel about it. Because I know that this film will probably find its fan base. All films pretty much do. So, just saying. Take my opinion at what it is. Anyway, this one's directed by Jenn Wexler, who also did The Ranger, which I remember thinking The Ranger was decent. It's been many years since I've watched that. I think I may have reviewed it on my channel. I'm not 100% sure. You can search Carlin Cook, The Ranger, and see if anything comes up. Maybe I have a review on that one. I don't remember. It was written by Wexler as well as Sean Redlitz. I am familiar with Sean. I wouldn't say I know Sean. We just know of each other because he used to work at Shudder. He used to be the head of their PR stuff, and I had a lot of email interactions with him. Super nice person, very helpful, very outstanding at his job there. Unfortunately, he was one of the people who got let go, so I'm glad to see that he's still doing, horror film related stuff. That's great. That's part of the reason I feel so bad. I know a lot of people will say, don't feel bad, you're just giving your honest opinion. That's true. But at the same time, when you feel certain ways, you just can't stop that. You know what I mean? And especially when you're going to say negative things about something that was made by someone who you know to be a good person or suspect to be a good person. Suspect's probably not the best word, but yeah, you know what I mean. Again, Shudder original coming Friday, December 8th. Quick synopsis. The Strangers-ish. It's basically about a group of people who are invading homes and killing people, and they're kind of on this rampage across, I wouldn't say across the country, but across a certain swath of the United States. And it seems to be set in the 70s, so there is kind of like this little bit of like Manson family feel to it as well, which was probably intentional. That's not really a spoiler, because that's an immediate thing in the movie. It's like the opening sequence, basically. Which, by the way, the opening sequence is probably my favorite of the entire film. That was actually really cool, but I'll talk more about that in a second. But don't want to give too much up, but it's these people kind of going, there's something more going on than them just doing home invasions, and then they kind of come to this school for young girls, and most of them aren't really there because it's about Christmas break time, because that's when this takes place. It is a Christmas horror film, so that's cool. Always need more of those. And something happens. It's horror. Something goes awry. Don't want to get too much further into it after that. But the film definitely gets started in a very messed up way. Like I'm saying, there's like a home invasion aspect to it. That's what we have in the very beginning of the film. And it's very interesting. It's very kind of jarring the way they choose to start the film, and it's a great start for the movie. Now, unfortunately, they don't continue with that, in my opinion. They had a lot of great momentum in the very beginning, and if the film could have harnessed exactly what happens in that beginning sequence, it would have been a lot better, in my opinion. And the camera work in that opening sequence is extremely cool. It really does remind me of one particular scene in the film Assassination Nation, which is highly underrated. I highly recommend people checking that out. Having to do with kind of camera work that moves around a building. Super inspired, super cool looking. And for the most part, I think the cinematography, the direction in this, the cinematography is quite good. The direction, to a degree, good. It's this kind of like fine line of trying to figure out how much can the director actually get out of the actors if the actor's ability is just to a certain level. You know what I mean? And it's hard to know how much an actor can actually give and how well they can do versus can a director just not get that out of them? You know what I mean? Like, can a director pull better performances out of people or can they not? So it's kind of hard to know in that instance. There is CGI that's used in it that doesn't look all that great. Now, I kind of assume that's usually going to be the case if CGI is used in a much lower budget film, which this one clearly is a very low budget film. Shudder originals typically are, unless they're from overseas, because in a lot of cases they get help from their home country for financing as well. So a very unfortunate thing for film, low budget films in the United States. But CGI doesn't look that great. Just saying. The dialogue is okay. It's okay. It's not great dialogue. It's not bad dialogue. It kind of hits in the middle. But the problem is the acting doesn't sell it. And that's one of the biggest issues with this film is the characters are such that you really need the actors to be super strong for a film like this. And I just don't think they are. There are actors who are okay or decent, but this type of film demands more than that. I think the script isn't super strong to start with, but with better actors, you definitely could have sold this a lot more. There are definitely times where I've been able to see in a film that the script isn't that strong, but the actors really go for it. Their performances are so good, and they sell it themselves. That doesn't really happen here. Actually, I think the decent, what is good with the script actually gets sold short with the acting, very unfortunately. There are some good practical effects moments, though. I really did enjoy those moments of practical effects. I thought they were shot well. I thought they were obviously constructed extremely well as the actual prosthetics and everything. So I like those moments the best, especially in contrast to that CGI that doesn't look the best. It's a holiday movie, and they do a good job of kind of keeping you thinking that it's a holiday movie. They have enough kind of like set pieces and reminders to be like, yes, this is a Christmas time horror film. So I like that. I love that type of setting with it. That's a minor thing, though. The music is over the top. This is another thing that really does bother me. If you've been watching my channel long enough, I'll always chime in on these things and say, I don't want a score that feels like it's beating me over the head, that feels like it's not leading me into in a scene how to feel, but shoving me, kicking and screaming, because you don't want to feel like a score is screaming at you, and the score really does scream at you with this. It's very over the top. Just not my thing. I know that doesn't bother some people. It does for me. The movie feels like it's fumbling forward most of the time, unfortunately. Obviously, that has a lot to do with the script writing, unfortunately. The story just isn't there, in my opinion. There's a good concept here, but I think it just was not fleshed out enough, and it really does feel like it's kind of stretched for runtime, unfortunately. This is kind of an issue that I harp on a lot with films nowadays, is we really don't need to do that. In the age of streaming, especially, this is a Shudder original, like, less is more in that instance, and I'm going to keep doing this. I do this all the time. I'm going to point to the film Host, which was under an hour, and it took the time that it needed to tell the story effectively. We need to get a lot tighter with scripts overall, and this film does show that there was a lot of fat in that script that really needed to be trimmed out in order to keep things moving and to keep the interest for people. Because the thing is, when people can tell that there's filler and it feels like it's really dragging, you're losing people. And unfortunately, you're losing them to their cell phone a lot of the times. People will start to get bored. They'll either turn it off or they're on their phone. And if they're on their phone, they're not fully paying attention to the film. There are writing out of convenience scenes in which characters do things they really would not end up doing otherwise. That speaks to the writing. You really, in those moments, have to think about the character. Think about real life situations for what's going on in the film, in the world that you've created here, and think, would this character actually do this? There are a bunch of those moments where people watching it will kind of be like, really, that character would not do that thing. And it's just more done out of writing out of convenience to just move the story where the writer really wants it to go. So that's unfortunate. Sorry, it's been a long day. There's a scene where you see snow and it looks like soap bubbles. It literally looks like lather from dish soap. So unfortunately, I mean, yay, they tried to like get fake snow, but not great. It doesn't look like snow. Very unfortunate. I feel like at that point they should have just kind of like CGI'd that in, especially because when you see it, it's kind of like dark and you know CGI, the rough edges on CGI is hidden pretty well in darkness. But yeah, it just kind of takes you out of the movie. Unfortunately, makes the movie look even cheaper than it probably is. There's a dance scene that got some good laughs for me. It's interesting because the actor who does it just goes for it, and that's cool. I really appreciated that. But the moves are just so silly and ridiculous and funny, and it also, like, did we need this dance scene in the film, too? Like, that was another thing. It feels very out of place. It's not really needed, but it is interesting, kind of funny, and kind of fun at the same time. So, felt pretty conflicted on it, as you can tell. The end portion is better than most of the film. So you do get some payoff in the end, but I'm going to say it's not a lot, unfortunately, at least not for me personally. And then there's a decent concept here, but too much filler and not enough that feels like it actually matters. Again, a lot more needed to be fleshed out with the actual core story. Again, good concept, good idea here. There are some good moments, there's some good scenes, but as a whole, it just did not come together. I think the script needed a bunch more passes, and I think it really needed to have a lot of the fat trimmed and maybe a lot more fleshed out as far as some of the characters go, because the character relationships did not feel that great, unfortunately. But anyway, out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm going to give this a 1-star rating. Again, I feel bad about it, but I'm also never going to lie about these things. So I do wish the best to Jenn and Sean, because just because people make one movie that, you know, someone like me does not like, A, doesn't mean that other people aren't going to like it, and B, doesn't mean that if a lot of other people don't like it, they can't go on and make something much better, because people grow and people learn. And the other thing is people have different ideas, and maybe they're good at one idea but not at another. But, you know, I'm just rambling at this point. Thank you, everyone, for checking this out. Please comment if you watch this film and you want to talk about it, especially if you have differing opinions. Always open to hearing that and starting a dialogue. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate that. Hit the like button on this video if you did like it. Hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos on my channel. And yeah, just thank you for your time spent watching this. But until next time, keep it brutal.